Today I'll tie one of the truly indispensable patterns for sea-run cutthroat trout here in the Pacific Northwest. This is the Chum baby, which was created by Bob Triggs, a fishing guide from the Olympic Peninsula, to imitate the chum salmon fry that emerge from the stream beds and enter saltwater in the spring and early summer. So it'll always be a special pattern for me. This is the first sea-run cutthroat I caught on a fly that I tied myself, and it was on a chum baby of about 1.5 inches. Although the little chum fry are swimming about in the spring and summer, I actually caught this fish late in the fall, which goes to show that for whatever reason, this can be a very productive pattern pretty much any time of the year. So it's a very good fly. Now, there are a number of ways that you can tie it, and the length can be anywhere from 1 inch or so to well over 2 inches, depending on the size of the bait fish that you want to imitate. This one here is about 1.75 inches. You can also vary the material that the wing's made of. In the vise is a fly with natural grey squirrel tail, but I also tie these with fox squirrel tail, like this, which has a different pattern and colour profile. So I keep a selection of both of these types in my box of different sizes, and I just see what's working. So let's get this one out, and I'll show you how I tie these. The hook choice, I feel, is very important, and I'd recommend using the Gamakatsu SC15, which is a very high quality hook. And because this fly is basically just the wing, you don't need a hook with a long shank. I'm tying on size 6 today, but I'll also use size 4 for the really long ones, and occasionally I'll drop down to a size 8. So for a bead, I pretty much stick with a copper color. You could use gold, but I just like the more subtle shine of the copper. For size 6 and 8 hooks, these 5/32 inch beads work well, but sometimes I'll drop down to a 1/8 inch bead if I want to keep the fly higher in the water column, or if I'm tying on a really small hook like a size 8. So I've got my size 6 hook with a bead already attached. Before I fish this, of course, I'll pinch down the barb. I'm going to make a base with my tie-in thread, which is just 70 denier black ultra thread. So from right behind the bead, I'm going to wind slightly around the bend of the hook to a point just opposite the barb. Just about there. Cut that away. Then come all the way forward again. Okay. Now people use different materials for the body. It probably doesn't matter very much. I like to use just a medium holographic tinsel in a plain silver color. So I'll cut myself a length of that. I like to tuck the end of it just inside the little space at the back of the bead. I'll secure that with 4 or 5 wraps of thread. Then I'm going to wrap it once around and then spiral it back in touching turns. You can kind of feel it click into place when it contacts the previous wrap. Then I'll reverse direction, change the angle, and wind it back again. And I'll trap that just right behind the bead and tie it off. Whoops. Snip away the surplus. Now, on its own, that mylar tinsel is not at all durable, so you need to protect it. I'm going to apply a layer of clear UV fly finish. You could use head cement or Sally Hansen's if you prefer, but this UV stuff is really very quick and easy. It's a bit too much there, I'll just spread it around. Just cure it. Okay, now I'm going to take my thread back about 1 bead's width, ready to tie in the wing. Now, as I said, you've got a choice of the fox squirrel tail, which I think was what was used in the Bob Triggs original, or the natural grey squirrel, which has more white in the tips, in addition to those bands of grey and brown. And I'm going to cut myself a small piece of grey squirrel for this one. I'm going about halfway down the side of the tail. And I'm starting with this, which is probably a bit less than the thickness of a pencil, and I'm going to set to work just removing all the overly long and short hairs from the bunch. I want to end up with a very sparse wing. So into the hair stacker it goes. This has the effect of evening up those different bands of colour, making it look like the stripes on the side of the little chum salmon. I'll remove it by the points. Now there's still stuff that I want to remove. Hairs which are still too short and which are just not sitting right. Go. So now I'm left with approximately 20 hairs. I'm going to use my hair scissors to trim the butt ends off square. Offer that up to the shank of the hook, and you have to keep it very tightly pinched as you wrap, or it'll try and spin itself around the hook. Just check it. There's one that wasn't trapped, don't worry about that. That looks pretty decent, so I'm going to continue to make tight wraps. Fine. Now squirrel hair is particularly slippery, so I'm going to add extra security in the form of this fly tires super glue. Just going to dab a little of it into the threads. Go. Okay, now I need to add a bit of flash along the sides of the wing. This is going to be Pearl UV crystal flash. I'm going to cut 2 pieces for the side nearest me. Again, if I can, I like to poke those ends into the back of the bead, but it's not going to cooperate today, so I'll just go ahead and tie it in with a couple of turns. And it can be really tricky to get this stuff to sit just right, so you just take your time and make adjustments before completely tying it in. Just pull that around a bit. Okay, that's the way I want it. Okay, same at the other side. I'll pull that one out. Let's try that again. Trim those to the length of the wing. Yeah, they look okay. Now I'm going to tie in a collar of peacock curl. 3 strands are plenty. I'll trim off the butt ends and tie them in on my side. Now the original Bob Triggs version has 2 strands of herl as a topping along the top of the wing. I used to put those in, but they always break after a few casts and you end up with a really sad looking fly, and I'm not convinced that they make it fish any better, so now I just leave those out. So we'll just wrap these around a couple times to make a nice collar. The collar is actually meant to represent the eye of the salmon fry. There we go. Tie that off tightly. Snip away the excess. Now I'm going to put in a couple of whip finishers. And I'm not going to add any head cement or anything. I think the 2 whip finishers do the job of holding everything together. That's one. Another one. Got my thread. And that's the classic Chum baby. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Good luck and take care.